Hello, this is Rick again, and we're going to be talking about Chapter 10, Procedures on the Eye. Okay, so we're talking about procedures on the eye. So we're talking about, again, what is done. Eye procedures start with two characters, either 0 or 8, and then they're followed by five characters for procedures performed on the eye. If you look in table 10.1 in your text for character 3, you'll see root operations. And again, this gets back to what were they trying to do? What was the purpose of the procedure? Were they trying to alter a path, bypass something, change, um, ablate tissue? In other words, destroy something, repair, replace, reposition. So those are the kind of things that you have to take a look at. What was the purpose? And then that will guide you to the root operations. So you may want to take a look at table 10.1 in your text as you go through these review questions. Another thing that's important when coding procedures on the eye is you have to understand the different parts of the eye. What is the difference between a conjunctiva and a sclera and cornea, retinal and retinal vessel? All these things will drive the codes. And if you don't understand what some of these terms are, this is when you can use a medical dictionary. Now, the approach gets a little bit involved, and this is where things go sideways for something. The fourth character talks about I'm sorry, the approach. So in other words, we're looking at how the surgeon reached the site. And so this could be open, this could be percutaneous, this could be via a natural or artificial opening. This could be via natural or artificial opening endoscopically or external. When we use external, of course, we're talking about something that's done directly on the skin. Now, the sixth character answers one simple question. Did a device stay in the body? In eye procedures, this includes intraocular lenses, synthetic or biological tissue substitutes, drainage or infusion devices. If they don't mention a device that remains after the procedure has concluded, it's no device. And this is actually very common. Not all eye procedures have devices. Now we're almost done. We're with the seventh character. Character seven is the qualifier. So most often it will be diagnostic or it will be no qualifier. You only use a qualifier if the table requires one. If the documentation doesn't support it, don't force it. Don't assume it. And then here are some common procedures. So it's helpful to know what these procedures are. Keratoplasty, penetrating keratoplasty, also known as a corneal transplant, right? If you understand what these things are, you'll have a much better chance of coding these things correctly. And so it might be worth your time to get a medical dictionary and start by focusing on these particular terms. And that's all I have for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you online. Bye now.